probably the biggest news coming out is the drop in pending home sales. Maybe you've seen that over the last couple of weeks, been all over the news, and certainly clients are seeing that. So let's talk a little bit about that and this topic of, is the market starting to cool off? We've seen the headlines out there. We talked about it last month, that it's being talked a lot about, but let's look at pending home sales going all the way back to 2012. And you see right there, you see we're kind of clipping along there at a nice pace. We dip down during the lockdown, come back up and pack a bunch of activity, a bunch of home sales into summer of last year. And then the drop is that little red bar that I just put in there on the screen. You see that drop, still well ahead of where we have been historically, but off the highs of what we saw over the summer last year and coming into the spring of this year. So we look at pending home sales. I want to give you that context about where we stand. If we were to draw a line, what a healthy market looks like, this dotted line right here gives you perspective of a healthy market. Still a very, very good market, but starts to put that drop in pending home sales into perspective. And probably one of the biggest stories out there. And if clients see, hey, home sales are dropping off, and I'm concerned, then that just adds more fuel to that fire of, should I buy right now? And we want to be the educator in this market. I'll go to a quote here from Odetta Cushy. She says, "We are seeing some signs of softening in the housing market, but context is important here. We're still very much in a seller's market. We're seeing some early signs of softening." So what we want to do here is focus on what I have in blue there and underlying. Context is very, very important. Just like we looked at existing home sales, we want to look at everything. We looked at the last 10 years of pending home sales, and then we see this drop. It puts that in context. So let's go through and look at a couple other things, and let's focus on the context of what's happening. First, showing time. We've looked at this for a while, and you're familiar with that if you've been following the monthly market report. We kind of dipped down. You see the two red bars there during the lockdown last year in March and April, and then came back, packed a lot of business in the summer, then saw a tremendous amount of business as we started, or a tremendous amount of showings as we started off this year, but we've started to dip down. Now, this most recent reading of July is 189.4. You go back to last summer, we were hovering around 200, 199, so very close to where we were last summer when we packed a ton of business into those few months. Again, context is important. If we go back to 2019, that's what we want to look at for true context. It's hard to look back at 2020 and say, this is a number that we can look at because it was such an erratic year. But this reading back in July 2019 was 123. Right now we sit at 189, well ahead of where we were back in 2019. Again, context, very, very important. We stay on this theme about, is the housing market cooling off? Ojo Labs released this. They said the U.S. housing market continues to be ultra competitive, even as new COVID cases surge, but new data shows the level of competition and ensuing price increases may be cooling off just slightly. Data shows that 49.6% of homes sold for more than the initial list price in July, far ahead of the number reported in July 2020, when 26.8% of homes were sold above initial asking price, but below June's total, when 54.4% of homes were sold more than the initially listed.